I feel like I've forgotten so many. Hello folks, my name is Stephanie Canada. Welcome back to my tiny corner of the internet. I'm passionate about vintage, sewing, and never taking myself too seriously to poke fun at myself. If that sounds like your cup of tea, make sure you click that subscribe button so you can see me upload every Tuesday and Friday. In today's video, we're going to be discussing every single place that I have ever found vintage. For cheap. Now, while that is not a comprehensive list to everyone who buys vintage, I am going to provide you with a list of every single place, online and in person, that I have ever found vintage clothing or fabric, patterns, etc. Now, if you do have other places that you found vintage, either online or in person, please feel free to let me know down in the comments below. I always want more places to find vintage. So now I will be going through the in-person locations first, going from the least frequented to the most frequented / best place that I find vintage, and then jumping into the online versions, again going in the same order of least used to most used, sort of, because online's a little harder to describe that, but I'm gonna do my best. I will pop up right now a little timestamp if you prefer to jump to those online options due to quarantine-tasticness. So, why don't you be my guest, grab your coffee, and let's get started. So the least frequented place that I go to when I'm hunting for vintage finds in person is going to be, believe it or not, antique malls. Now, don't come at me. Yes, you can find lots of really good things because normally antique malls have lots of different vendors and lots of different vendors price things lots of different ways, which sometimes works for me. Now, yes, antique malls sometimes can be a fantastic place to find things on the cheap, and sometimes they can be a fantastic place to overpay. I've never done that before. So I have found some really lovely things in antique malls, and normally what I find in the amazingness factor of the antique mall booth is going to be vintage patterns and fabrics. Those are by far the least valued and sometimes the hardest to find, but they are by far the least valued items. Most of the time I'll pick up patterns between $1 to $3 each. So you occasionally will find people that are high on their horse / know what they have, and they're gonna price things between like $5 and maybe $10. I have seen some people try to charge Etsy prices in an antique mall, and it never works. Mainly because the reason you're selling it on Etsy is because it's a wider base. When you're going to an antique mall, it's a very localized market, so you normally have to lower the price a little bit. Oh, also, I'm not even going to touch the vintage glassware, vintage furniture. That's a whole other market that I know nothing about. Now, I do have a little question for you. I have lots of really fun stories about these things and how I found them and where I found them. Is that something that would interest y'all? Like, story time with Stephanie. Is that kind of an interesting thing for you? Let me know down in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And my second least frequented place to go is going to be that flea market. Now, for those of you that live up north and have fantastic flea markets, good for you! I live in Orlando. It's normally 90 all year round, or hotter. So the idea of me going out to a flea market that isn't like an extravaganza with literal hundreds of people around is not really gonna happen because I don't like to be outside that long. Now, I do know that flea markets are fantastic places to find things, as I do frequent them when I go up north, but here in Florida, not so much. And next up on the list is going to be that garage sale, primarily for the same reason. It's hot and I don't wanna. And also, because I live in a more touristy town, unless we go up north on the northern side of Orlando, you're not going to find a lot of people that have lived here most of their lives, which are the people that are, you know, getting rid of the vintage clothing, fabric, and patterns that I'm looking for. So, for me, garage sales, especially in Florida, aren't really a thing that I do a whole lot. Those are mainly for, am I looking for a new bookcase? Do I need a new desk? Do I need cleaning products that someone's cleaning out of their rental home? That's normally what we're going to find at our garage sales down here. Now, number 4 on the list is going to be the vintage fair. Now, the reason why this isn't somewhere that I normally shop, it's because I'm normally a vendor there. Now, I find when you go to these vintage fairs, most of the prices are pretty much the same as you'd find in an antique mall, just, it's outdoors and you're sweating more. Occasionally I'll get lucky on like a clearance rack, or maybe somebody just brought some patterns and just doesn't give a care. It's possible. It has happened. Normally those are going to be the more higher prices that I can't really afford to pay. Unless it's something personally for me that I want to take on and never let go of.
Precious.
Now these final 3 are sort of interchangeable because they are my 3 most heavily relied on. The first is going to be, well, technically the 5th, is going to be the estate sale. I love estate sales. They are the best. Now, you do have to make sure that you're knowing which companies and how they price. I definitely have 4 companies here in Orlando that I prefer to go to, and I know which days to go on because I know when they drop their prices. But estate sales really are the best for me. Number 1, you're indoors. Number 2, a lot of the times the things that I'm looking for, fabrics, clothing, patterns, aren't really priced that high. Do you have to make sure you're looking for all of the details in a really probably poorly lit house? Yes you do. But that just sort of goes along with the territory, and it's one of those just known factors when you're going into these. Sometimes I bring a flashlight, most of the time I forget. Now, to pair along with those estate sales, you are also looking at those thrift stores. Because I distinguish the thrift store from my final and most favorite just because of how the situation is inside. Thrift stores, I mean Salvation Army, Goodwill, Habitat for Humanity, Restore, I don't know, insert name of your local thrift store here. That's really what I'm talking about. The ones with tags or dots, and, sometimes they're on sale, sometimes they're not, things like that. Sometimes you have to really make sure that you're not overpaying for a garment because while they are normally better lit than estate sales, it doesn't mean their pricing is any better. Now, have I found some really good deals at thrift stores? Oh, yes, I have. Was the lighting any better than an estate sale in that one? No, it wasn't, but I didn't care. So I do really enjoy the thrift store. I would make sure that when you're going, you ask or look for the signs to see which ones are on sale, things like that. I could go into like a super uber in-depth of how to do a thrift store cheaply video. Do you want that one? Because I got lots of tips. And my last and by far some of the best deals I've ever found are the Goodwill outlets, also known as the bins. This place is unreal. The very first time I ever went to one, I was here in Orlando, and it was interesting. Now that I've been to a couple bins around the country, because every time I go on an opera contract, my days off are spent thrifting and going to the Goodwill outlets, because you pay by the pound. And in some areas, the more you buy, the cheaper it gets. That was a new one to me. It's really interesting to see how you can find and dig through bin upon bin upon bin to see what you find. Sometimes you find new things, especially down here in Orlando because of the tourist market, and I loved the Denver bins because basically it was all vintage, and I was happy. But that is by far my number 1 that I'm going to is going to be the Goodwill outlets, and I come prepared. Giant IKEA bag in hand, and now apparently, I don't know, I'm gonna have to try going to the bins now that the rules have changed. So I'll update you later when I try one of those runs. And now moving into that online realm. Now I'm not really going to be going into how I delve through these because of just time constraints. If that's something you're interested in, let me know down in the comments and I'd be happy to make a video for you. And again, I'm going to be going from my least used / normally don't find as many deals down to the best and the ones that I use a lot. This is going to be, again, as we get toward the bottom, a little amalgamous because the last couple I use all the time every single day. So there's that. So the one that I use the least as a buyer is going to be Etsy. Not because there aren't deals to be had, but normally when you go to Etsy, people are pricing at the top end of the market as opposed to the bottom end. Because they know what they've had, they've done the research, they know what era it's from, they know the content, they are all about the flaws, like they're very clear on what you're getting. Which I enjoy, and that's what I try to do for my buyers, but for me as a buyer, I don't mind a little mystery, unless it's polyester. Then I don't like it. But Etsy's really not something I go to when I'm buying things because I know a lot of people have already done that research and have priced it already at the top of the market. Which there's nothing wrong with that. Another place that you can occasionally find good deals on is going to be Instagram. Now, again, you might have some people that find the higher end things and know exactly what they're worth, and sometimes they don't. But normally I find on Instagram, those are going to be the more higher price points as opposed to the lower because of just the aesthetic that Instagram provides. It is a platform that I can occasionally find things that I want for myself and that I want to keep, but it's not really a place that I go to find things to sell to other people. And my next least used is really going to be like the Poshmarks, Depop's, etc. People have already researched their stuff, and Poshmark takes a ridiculous cut, says the woman who also sells on Poshmark, so I know. But things like that, I'm not expecting to go onto those websites to find super big deals. Now, again, can you find deals? Oh, absolutely. I have seen them. It's insane. I really know that people are putting time into it, so I'm probably not going to get the good deals that I would want. Now, this is another one only because I don't remember to go there all that often. I don't really know why. I probably should. This one is going to be the Goodwill auction site. You're going to find things from all around the country. They put them on this one website and you can bid on it and it ships to you. Now, the one thing I will say, make sure you check the shipping fee. Just because it's cheap doesn't mean the shipping isn't going to be ridiculous. I have had friends that have found massive deals there, and it's a really good way to get the items that are in the Goodwills out to more people, and so I completely understand and respect why they're doing it, but I just forget to go there. Meh. And the next one is going to be Craigslist. I will preface this, you really need to be careful when you're going on Craigslist. Make sure you either go with a person, meet in a well-lit area. Don't be like me and meet people in the middle of the night with your husband in the car. But I love Craigslist because occasionally you will find people that are just, get it out, as my mom said. She was like, just take it. And so when you find things like that, absolutely snap up those deals. But what you're getting is a whole lot of mystery most of the time because the photos aren't taken terribly well. They probably didn't put much time into the description and you're just sort of going on hope. So that's going to be one of the ones that I do use on occasion. Again, because I'm in Florida, not quite so much because people want full price for things down here and I don't really know why. I'm like, you're on Craigslist. You can ask for it, but I'm not going to pay it. So it also really depends on the area that you're in, because I am prefacing this all with my experience here in Florida and a little bit of Knoxville as well, because that's where I would use it a lot, is really in like Knoxville, Tennessee area. So for me, two very different experiences and two very different price points of what I would see on Craigslist. All right, now next up on my... Well, this is, again, we're to like the final three, so every single one is kind of one that I use on a daily basis. But we'll just start with the biggest and most obvious, which is eBay. Because eBay is really just one of those sites that they might know exactly what they have, they're a vintage dealer, and they have researched the daylights out of it, and so they're charging you an arm and a leg. And then you have people that truly don't care and just want it gone. My favorite is when it's just labeled old fabric. Like, that's super helpful and there's no description. So you're going off of probably 2 photos if you're lucky. Sometimes it's just 1. And you're like trying to zoom in and like, what am I looking at? And of course, everyone's definition of old or vintage fabric, patterns, etc. is different. And it is a really good place that if you're looking for the correct keywords, you can really get a good deal. And if you adjust those categories, oh boy, that does a lot for you. And now we're going into my second favorite / most used of the online platforms, which is really the same platform, but very different functionalities. And this is going to be Facebook Marketplace. If you have not looked on Facebook Marketplace to buy things to flip or to transition for your own wardrobe, you're missing out, really. Because really what that is a place for people in your local area to just get rid of things, which is great. That's what I'm looking for. Please give me all the things you're getting rid of that are old and you don't find any value in, but I love. Depending on how far you're willing to drive, it lets you select the radius up to about 100 miles. You can go through, you can look for things in your area. They have categories. Sometimes it's a little odd because it's like listed in a group and it's a little, so it takes a second to figure it out, but it's another really useful tool that you really should look into, especially if you're looking to buy locally from the people in your own neighborhood. And last but not least, the most used item that I do online is going to be those Facebook groups. I am in so many vintage, pattern, fabric, clothing, modern fabric groups, etc. It's kind of crazy and I sort of lose track of which one I'm in. These groups are really a place for either a vintage dealer that knows what they're talking about to sell at a slightly high end but less than, say, Etsy because they're taking off the fees normally, or you go to those D-stash groups and oh boy, do I find all types of goodies there. Now, the one thing you really want to make sure of is that every time you list things, you really want to make sure that you're very clear on the group's rules, because as each group is run by a different group of people, all of the rules are different. So you really have to make sure that you're remembering which group you can post what in, and some groups allow cross-posting, some groups don't allow cross-posting. So again, if that's something you guys would like me to go more in depth with as far as like the groups that I'm in, I'd be happy to do that. Let me know down in the comments if you want to hear about all the Facebook groups I'm in to sell this stuff. Well, everyone, I hope you learned about something new today, or maybe I just told you everything you already know. If you did like this video, please make sure you click that like button. It does help me in the YouTube algorithm, as well as clicking that subscribe button and turning on that bell for post notifications so that YouTube knows you actually want to see my videos. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. See y'all next time. Is it going? Mm-hmm. Oh, good job. And push the like button. That was terrible. Let's try that again.
Oh no!
Oh no! In today's video, we are going to be discussing... Wow, I was really excited about that. So as you know, vintage is somewhat hard to find. Kind of. Sort of. Not really. As long as you know what you're looking for. That's a really terrible way of saying that. My coffee sheet was almost empty, but oh well. Sorry for the interruption. My child has opted to be my camera person and is now drawing instead of helping. And my husband started the washing machine. Yay! Going from my least used to my most used. Going from my least favorite option. So the least So first up in my least frequented. As I do. Oh, the allergies are real. That was my washing machine going off.